Paris is Max Keiser from maxkeiser.com. Max, these figures, one figure after another. I noticed Eurozone December producer prices falling. Those Macy's figures, 3 trillion in home values lost. Some people are saying that rather than a toxic bank, they should be thinking of making a good bank. Obama's stimulus package, will it make any difference?
Well, a bad bank is a slush fund. And what the U.S. government hopes to do is to take all of the bad debts that were built up from the years of fraudulent banking practices by the major banks and to stick them into this huge slush fund and hope that they go away. And they're not going to go away. These debts are multi-trillion dollars in size, and they have to be dealt with in a real way. They just simply can't be put into a quote-unquote bad bank and hope they go away. This is completely ludicrous, and the Obama program for extricating America out of its depression does not look like a winner at the moment.
Obama is contemplating measures that other governments are saying are protectionist, China speaking, Canada speaking. This idea of a good bank, do you think that's a step too far, too socialist a step, as it were, if they were going to create a government bank that had none of the problems associated with the current financial institutions that would be put in the toxic bank?
Well, by good bank, what they're talking about is nationalization. And ultimately, the banks in America will be nationalized. There's little doubt that that's what's going to happen after the bankers abscond with hundreds of billions of dollars worth of ill-gotten gains. So what you have in America is one giant bank, similar to in Russia, for example. They have one giant energy company, Gazprom. In America, you'll have one giant bank, Bankprom, which will be lorded over by Tim Geithner and other aristocrats and neo-monarchs and neo-feudal lords, and they will parse out credit based on political favor and cronyism. Capitalism and free market capitalism in America is dead, and I don't see how it's going to be resurrected without a new American revolution, a new declaration of independence. This should be what people in America look forward in 2009, is to take back their country and to revolt. That's about the only thing the American people have left to do. And now that the wealth and income gap has widened to levels that you haven't seen since the feudalism in Europe several hundred years ago.
You've long predicted the end of the dollar as a reserve currency. Putin in Russia saying that that should happen, but of course he's not perhaps as powerful with US dollar reserves in Russia not that high. Do you think other countries are seriously thinking about it, especially as the numbers, Paul Craig Roberts recently telling us, I don't know, maybe 4 trillion. What is the debt going to be? And do you think the US dollar may no longer be the reserve currency? That's really on the cards.
The US dollar is an interesting story. Very smart pundits in America like Peter Schiff got the US dollar story in 2008 completely wrong, as did most of the pundits, including guys like Jim Rogers, who's on some of your competing networks all the time. I myself, as you point out, has been calling for the death of the dollar. The problem is that as these economies collapse, they're not decoupling, as some would have suggested a year ago or so. What's happening is that people in these countries, in Russia, for example, they're buying dollars as a protection against a falling ruble. But they should be buying gold and silver if they were smart. But they're foolishly crowding into the U.S. dollar. I think they have very fond memories of Ronald Reagan, riding around in his cowboy hat, and they equate this with a strong dollar. They don't realize that it's a roach motel. The U.S. dollar is the roach motel of global currencies. It's easy to get in, but once you're in, it's going to be very difficult to get out of U.S. Treasury bonds and the U.S. dollar. And I think, as some have pointed out, perhaps Mark Faber has talked about the U.S. Treasury bond market being the mother of all bubbles and collapsing in 2009. So I don't think the dollar is really safe haven, although it has been relatively strong in the last 8 to 9 months. But this is due primarily, Afshin, to the unwinding of these hedge funds that were short dollars to fund all of the nefarious hedge fund activity we've seen over the past year and a half. And as these hedge funds collapse, they've got to buy back dollars to clear out their positions. So it's more technical than fundamental. There is no fundamental strength to the dollar, but there's tremendous technical strength, and it's short-lived.
Max Keiser from maxkeiser.com. Thank you very much.